Here we go. Once again. Woo! Yep. There we go.
Good morning, Timothy. Good morning, everybody who is here with us at Japan Politics One-on-One 228 episode this week. Thank you for joining us, and we have once again Timothy reporting from a different part of Tokyo Bay this time. So we're going to talk about the major events in Japanese politics that shape business and life in Japan. So Timothy, without any further ado, let's dive into them.
Great. Thank you very much, Maya. I am reporting from the sailing port of Hota, which is on the Chiba Prefecture, almost equidistant, right across the, directly across the bay from Miura Peninsula. So yesterday we sailed to Miura Peninsula and back and spent the night here. And now I am reporting to you live from the deck of the good ship Grimm's. And it is hot and a little bit blustery. I think the microphone is taking care of most of the wind. You're not getting much interference, Maya?
Not yet. Hopefully not from now on either.
Okay, so let me get into it right away so that we can get quickly into the Q&A, which really produces a lot of heat and light for the audience. But thank you very much, everybody, for joining. The audience continues to grow in spite of the snafu that we had last week. Maya, thank you for loading up very quickly a retake of our briefing last week. And once again, I apologize. We just had poor Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi is strong here. It should be good and last us throughout the broadcast today. But this is a very significant week in Japanese politics. Not only is today the official end of the diet session, although it ended on Friday formally, they closed the House down. It's supposed to be until today, the 22nd. But also it is the day for election of the 127 members of the Tokyo Metropolitan Government. So there's a lot going on there. Mr. Ishiba went to Canada. He joined G7. He came back on Wednesday. He had almost a state dinner. It wasn't quite a state dinner with the president of Germany. And now he leaves for the NATO conference this week. So there's a lot going on there. The closing of the House, there was a no confidence motion. There was no confidence motion submitted. It was talked about. It's been very busy for him. And then as we finish the elections today, which will somehow maybe indicate where we are going in the upper house elections, which is less than a month away. It's on the 20th of next month. A lot remains in store for him. So it's very significant what's going on. The yen closed out, Maya, on Friday at 146.1 to the dollar. That is a 3-month raise in the rate of how much the yen is worth compared to other currencies, in particular the US dollar. The price of oil has spiked 10% since the Iran conflict has started. It's been it hasn't been 10 days since that started, and that's having an impact. And the prognosis for the yen is to get a little bit stronger as money that is fearful of fluctuations goes to the safe havens of the United States dollar and the Japanese yen typically. Today is election day for the Tokyo Metropolitan Government, 127 seats. The entire sitting assembly, it's a one-house assembly in Tokyo, overseen by the governor, Koike, who had an election about 7 months ago, which invited maybe 50 candidates to become mayor and governor of this metropolis, the world's largest. And now this is the election of the assembly. So it is very significant. The voting is today for 42 districts, more than 15 political parties. This is the largest number of candidates to run an election since maybe 1997. Mr. Ishiba, the Prime Minister of Japan, returned from a 3-day visit to Canada on Wednesday. He's had a really packed schedule. Not so many people came in this week, but he was only here for 3 of the 5 days that you can actually have business. But significantly, the German president not only met with him in Canada over the 3-day period, but also came to Japan immediately afterwards. So he went to Canada, he came to Japan, and now he's going back to his home country to report to his parliament. But what a significant thing to happen for in terms of global diplomacy, to have that kind of a meeting. Let me see. The rice still continues to be in the news. Mr. Koizumi, the new Minister of Agriculture, has made a couple of announcements. He's released 910,000 tons of stockpiled rice that will be released to retailers, not to wholesalers or to distributors, but to retailers. That means it's going to get into the chain of commerce very, very quickly. It's been maybe 3 weeks since the price of rice has declined every third week, or every week over the last 3 weeks. But it's still, rice is still priced year on year more than 100% higher than it was this time last year. So there is still a lot of work to be done. But Mr. Koizumi is front and center. He's in the newspaper every day, and it's a hot topic. That and the gasoline tax is also a very hot topic. The diet session ended on Friday, 2 days before it was supposed to end. A 150-day diet session identified in the Constitution. The Japanese Constitution says that the diet must have a formal session for 150 days that must start in January and end 150 days, at least 150 days later. They've executed that constitutional mandate without an extension. We thought there might be an extension, but the most important thing to do in that diet session, in every diet session, the formal diet session, is to pass the budget, which was passed maybe 2 days later than it should have, but it still passed with a coalition of the LDP, Ishin, and the Constitutional Democratic Party, with the Prime Minister holding his nose, giving concessions to get that through. And as I said, Mr. Ishiba will join NATO summit in The Hague on Tuesday, Wednesday, and be back on Thursday. And this is just a week away from the Upper House campaign period. So the Upper House campaign period lasts for about 15 days, and it will begin on, I think, July 3rd, and it culminates in an election on the 20th, which is a Sunday. And when he comes back, it's also just 2 weeks away from the resumption of the Trump tariffs, which were on pause until July 9th. So there's a lot going on there. I'm going to try and get into them as quickly and as succinctly as possible. Let me just turn it over to you, Maya, for some words of wisdom from you, as usual, and then we'll get back into it, and then we can move into our Q&A. Maya?
Thank you. Again, Timothy mentioned that we apologize for last week's Wi-Fi connectivity issue. Thank you very much for staying with us despite of this. And also, if you are watching us on any of the platforms, we are live streaming right away. Please let us know that you are there. Like, subscribe, follow. In any event, leave a comment or leave a question. We'll be very happy to read out your comments, also to answer your questions to our best ability. And sometimes we also need help, which we have received in the past and we're very grateful for. So yes, thanks a lot for this. And Timothy, it's over to you once again.
The other thing too, Maya, I think both you and I were surprised by it. We broke off the briefing last week, probably about in the 5-minute mark. I hadn't even completed all of the bullet points for what the top line items were, and connectivity broke. We regrouped, we got connectivity back on, but it was maybe 10 or 15 minutes after everybody had left. We reloaded that, we restarted it from the beginning and uploaded it. And the comments that we got from you people in the audience, we are so grateful for that. Everybody was very supportive. You understand that we're doing this. We don't have a formal studio. We do it as we can. Maya's in her house. I'm wherever I can be for Sunday morning at 8:20 to brief you. 228 sessions consecutively every single Sunday. So you have acknowledged that, you recognize that, and we're really grateful for your tolerance on some of the snafus that we have. But thank you very much. Getting back to the issues, Maya, the tariffs remain kind of on again, off again. Mr. Akazawa, who is the minister in charge of revitalization and tasked by the prime minister to be the point person to negotiate with the United States, to negotiate with Mr. Trump indirectly through the Secretary of the Treasury, for the Commerce Secretary, for the USTR, United States Trade Representative. Those are his counterparts. He was meeting with them at the same time that the prime minister was in Canada with the G7 on Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. Everybody knows that President Trump was there but left abruptly because of the Iran conflict. But Mr. Akazawa is working really hard to kind of keep this kind of tapped down. Many pundits believe that there might be a deal from Canada during the G7. We didn't think so. We reported that here. It seemed very unlikely that they would be able to do that. It doesn't even look likely that they'll do that during the NATO summit. It's not quite keyed up for that. But I think more long term, Mr. Akazawa has attempted to convey to the Diet and to the Prime Minister and to the Japanese population, there's no quick fix here, and we just can't be pushed around by the United States coming up with these these numbers that come up that have just been pulled from the air, 25%. Why 25% on tariff on automobile parts? Why 24% across the board on other products? And the non-tariff implementation of punishment for goods and services that are not being allowed into the market. This is a very difficult thing. The pause was 90 days. We're approaching that timeline. I don't think within the 90 days, Mr. Akazawa and the Japanese negotiators are going to be successful in resolving that issue. I think the strategy is, let's just keep negotiating. Mr. Trump has said we can continue negotiating after the 90-day period. We can pause it a little bit longer depending on who we're dealing with, what kind of form and manner of negotiations there've been. And I think the Japanese have been very, very careful in maintaining a decorum and trying to move the ball forward and trying to understand what is the foundation for the tariffs and the numbers and why the distribution is like this. Also, significantly, there is a 2+2. That's the defense minister and the Secretary of State who meet on it. It's been going on for years. The scheduled one with the United States is supposed to be on July 3rd, I believe. And the Japanese negotiators just announced that they're going to cancel that. This came on the heels of a news story coming out that the defense minister, or the Secretary of Defense, Mr. Hegseth, was going to be insisting on a 3.5 increase in military expenditure by the Japanese going forward. You might remember that Japan had consistently held it below 1%, and over the last 3 years, they agreed to increase it to 2%. That's a doubling of it for a 5-year period. So we're in year 3 of the 5-year period. It is really kind of impinged on Japan's economy, not a whole lot, but it is purchasing a lot more than it was in the past. It's hosting a lot of foreign allies to come to Japan to build facilities, to cross-train with the Philippines, with Australia, with England, to do the cross development of the next generation fighters with Britain and Italy. There's a lot going on in that space. And now to hear, in light of everything else that's going on with the economy here, the inflation, the upcoming elections, that the United States seems to be insisting, rather than moving it and being satisfied with the 2%, to move it to 3%. You might remember that when Mr. Glass was going through his confirmation hearings, there was some noise about him wanting to insist that Japan increase it not beyond 2%, but to 3%. 3% is the new target. And now to hear a new number, 3.5%, where did this come from and why this timing? We're going to cancel it. So they've canceled, this is significant, they've canceled the 2+2 that is scheduled in 2 weeks' time. So that's kind of Japan kind of straightening their back and kind of saying, there's only so far that you can push us around, and we are our own economy, and we control our own destiny. But being pushed around like this, in light of everything else that's going on, enough is enough. It sounds like that's the kind of tone that's going on. So no breakthroughs over the last 3 weeks. Mr. Akazawa has visited the United States 6 times. He's in Japan now. Probably he will leave. I don't have a schedule for that, but probably next week when the Prime Minister is in The Hague. The diet session ended on Friday. 150-day session, as I said, constitutionally mandated. There was a continuing threat of a no confidence motion. We have been talking about that. We've been talking about the possibility of a double election, with the LDP kind of sucking in its wind, being a little bit out of breath. In October, it did lose its majority in a coalition with Komeito. It lost its majority, so it can't really dominate Japanese politics. It lacks 13 votes to have a majority and push things through. They could railroad things through the diet. They have ever since the LDP has been in a dominant position. It's something that they do because they can do it. They can't do it now, and it has stymied the Prime Minister, and it's stymied the LDP from getting things done in a kind of consistent, guaranteed fashion. So the 150-day session has been marred by a lot of, what would you say, concessions that they must make every step of the way. Nothing is going to be smooth. And in fact, they almost lodged a no confidence motion. In order to invoke a no confidence motion, the party that initiates it must have 50 members, at least 50 members, in order to initiate it. There's only one opposition party that meets that requirement. That's the Constitutional Democratic Party under former Prime Minister Noda. And you need half of the members of the lower house to also vote for that no confidence motion for it to succeed. So you can initiate a no confidence motion, but if it doesn't succeed, if you don't have 233 votes, which is half of the lower house, then that fails. You have egg on your face and you don't look very cool. And if we're going up to elections coming up within the next 30 days, that's probably not a good decision. So there was a lot of gamesmanship going on there. The Prime Minister actually said, he wagged his finger at Mr. Noda and the other opposition parties. If you guys begin to threaten me with a no confidence motion, I'm just going to close down the House. I can do that as Prime Minister. The deadline for him to do that, actually the deadline for both of them, the deadline for the opposition parties to come together and file a no confidence motion was Friday. The diet must be in session. Similarly, for the Prime Minister to say, I hate you guys, I'm going to close down the House, everybody goes for election because I can't work with you, I'm going to close down the House, everybody resigns, I resign as Prime Minister, we have an election of the entire members of the lower house, and we reconfigure, and we'll do it in a double election. The 50% of the upper house will also run for an election, and maybe we'll have a windfall. Maybe we will recoup that 13 additional members. He must do that when the diet is in session 2. The diet ended on Friday, as I said. There is one caveat. The Prime Minister can call an extraordinary diet session for whatever reason. Sometimes it's a smokescreen. I've got other reasons I want to have an extraordinary diet session. It's happened in the past under Mr. Nakasone. He called everybody back in after the diet session had ended. He said, I want to talk about the economy and trade. And everybody came in and he said, I'm closing down the House. That was a big event that actually involved me in coming back to from the United States to participate in a lower house election. And the LDP won big time in that double election. So it is possible that, I mean, a lot is left somewhat unsaid. I just don't think that the political calendar would handle a double election. I think we're moving briskly forward to a upper house election, which will culminate in a vote on July 20th. That's where that one goes. At the same time, though, the opposition parties, they're mad. They wanted to zing the prime minister, and they couldn't do it with a no confidence motion. So what they did instead was they attacked a chairman of a standing committee within the lower house, and they ejected this member. It's almost like a vote of no confidence to eject a sitting member of a sitting chairman from a standing committee. It's unheard of. It's never happened before. This week, that's precisely what the opposition parties did. They came in, and Mr. Ibayashi Tatsunori was ejected. He was the chairman of the lower house Financial Affairs Committee, only because he didn't accept the opposition party's demand to continue talking about the gasoline tax. As chairman, he said, look, we've talked about it enough. I think it's time to close this up. The diet session is ending on Friday. I want to wrap this discussion up. So no more discussions. Let's take a vote on it. And the opposition party threw a hissy fit about that and used that as the reason to eject him. He didn't really do anything wrong. It wasn't like he did anything illegal or pocket some money or get reported in Bunshun. But they wanted to exercise their muscle, and they did. And it sent a very strong signal, not only to Mr. Ishiba, but also to the population at all, the people who are voting, that the LDP is not firmly in control. It has never happened that the opposition party has been able to dominate and kick out a sitting LDP, well, any committee chair. It happened that this time that Mr. Ibayashi was an LDP member. They ejected him, and they inserted a constitutional democratic, as you would imagine, a constitutional democratic party member who immediately took his seat. But since the diet ends, those seats rotate now that the diet will reconvene when another session is opened. So let's see what happens after the election. If Mr. Akutsu continues to be the chairman of this committee, and if this was just an exercise in tweaking the prime minister's nose, and it really didn't have much impact, but it was significant that this sort of, I can't do it with a no confidence motion, but I'm going to nick one of your guys just to tell you who's boss around here. The Iran conflict continues unabated. There's probably a lot more going on that hasn't reached our ears yet. Usually this kind of conflict, mostly we're dominated by propaganda from both sides. We don't know which story is accurate. We can follow what the news tells us, but the real story really comes out a couple of weeks later. But we know for right now that the President of the United States is thinking of his options, but a lot of assets are being strategically placed. So we anticipate that there's going to be more kinetic action, as they say, on the Iran facilities. The bombing continues there. So it's very worrisome for Japan. Japan imports about 7% of its oil from Iran directly. So it's not enough to be significantly that different if they lose that 7%. But more importantly, 90% of Japan's oil passes through the Strait of Hormuz. So that's the choke point, and that point is always been one of the flashpoints with the Houthis and the Iran and that entire conflict that's going on there. So if there is something that happens with the Strait of Hormuz, then Maya, can you turn your mic off, please? I can hear you strangling your cat.
Sure.
Thank you. Although it's nice to hear. So the price of oil has already shot up 10%. That's just in 10 days. It's been impacted by that. That causes jitters, not just to the financial market, but to consumers in Japan. And because Japan imports all of its energy, it produces very little of its own energy, maybe 7% by nuclear power, probably less than that, LNG, wind, solar, that sort of thing. But fossil fuels really is the most dominant source of power for the Japanese. The foreign ministry has escorted Japanese nationals living in Israel and also Iran, and formed kind of getaways for them, arrange for buses to take them out. Azerbaijan for those who are in Iran, and then for those who are in Israel, maybe to Jordan. And they've also commissioned 2 C2 transports to go to Djibouti to pick up these individuals, the Japanese nationals. So the foreign ministry has said to Japanese company executives and also to embassy officials and their families, you know, you need to get out of these conflict zones, you need to move. We're going to arrange for your flights, just get out of these major cities, and we will take care of the rest. So it's kind of like what happened during the triple disaster here. The embassy takes care of its nationals and gets them out of harm's way without them actually having to phone for you know, airplane seats and pay for that sort of thing. So the Japanese government is very serious about this and moving aggressively forward. Let's see how that one pans out as the days continue. The other important thing that's going on that you need to pay attention to are the Tokyo elections that are going on today. If you live in Tokyo, you couldn't miss that there is an election going on. 127 seats, 291 candidates. So that means if you are a candidate, you are allowed to have a truck that has a loudspeaker in it with uguisu, somebody who's talking into a microphone. The decibel levels are strictly controlled, but some people kind of squelch on that. But you can hear it throughout the neighborhoods, throughout the day, starting from 8 o'clock in the morning until 5 o'clock in the afternoon, these sound trucks. And that ended yesterday. So you might recall the last time that this happened, the last day of the campaign was when Mr. Abe was assassinated several years ago. So the last day, that was yesterday, is a very hot day for campaigning. 291 people are vying for these 127 seats, and it is very hotly contested. Let me just outline what the composure is of the metropolitan government offices. So of the 127 seats, the LDP is the major holder. It holds 42. Out of 127, it holds 42. You think that's not a significant number, but the second place holder is Tomin First. That's the party that was started by the Governor Koike. It has 37 seats. The next in line is Komeito, the LDP coalition partner, with 22. So with these 3 parties, LDP, Komeito, and Tomin First, they dominate Tokyo metropolitan government. But there are 10 other parties that are also vying for these 127 seats. Path to Rebirth is putting in, which is the Ishimaru's new party. He ran for governor, as you might remember. He is a former mayor in Akitakita from Hiroshima. He kind of rose out of nowhere, had a very effective internet social media campaign, came in second place behind Ms. Koike in a field of maybe 50 candidates to become governor. So he is a force to contend with. This is his first kind of foray to get into local politics. He's also running several candidates in the upper house. So depending on how he does, everybody's watching what he's doing. He's got a candidate running in each of the 42 districts. More than 1,100 people lobbied him to be a candidate, and he picked 42 of that more than 1,000 people who said, I want to be a politician, I want to run under your banner. Part of his message is to have more participation of the locals in the political process, and also only 2 terms for any member in the Tokyo metropolitan government. That's 8 years. You can only serve twice, and then you need to get the hell out and go do something else. This is not a lifelong package for you, as it is for many in the national parliament. So the signal here is, if he does extremely well, if he wins 10 seats, for example, which would be significant, watch TV tonight. If he wins 10 seats, then that's a very significant thing, and it's a go signal for him to run more candidates in the upper house election, which he says he's going to do. Setagaya is the largest prefecture by far in Tokyo. It has 18 candidates for 4 seats there. The LDP, Komeito, and Tomin First, they are likely to remain stable after the election count is in tonight. That is the prediction. Yomiuri says 20%, when they polled people, 20% of the people say, I like the LDP. 10% say, I like Tomin. So that covers maybe 30%. So that's pretty good. The Constitutional Democratic Party ranks third at 7%. The Constitutional Democratic Party, 7%. The Japan Communist Party ranks at 4%. Komeito, the LDP coalition partner, ranks at 4%. And then the others are just kind of all scattered all over the place. But that's pretty interesting that the Constitutional Democratic Party comes in third at 7%, and that the Japanese Communist Party comes in at 4%. So they do have a viable voice in the Tokyo metropolitan government, and similarly in the national election as well. What I'd like to do next is talk about the rice prices and why Mr. Koizumi is making such an impact. So as you might recall, 4 weeks ago when this all started, rice was clocking in at 100% higher prices during this period of time. So the rice is being planted now, so that means that typically you're eating the stockpile from last year's produce, from last year's production of rice. You're eating through that. They've already done that. They did that probably in the later part of last year, and now they go into 2023, the stockpile there. They went through that, and then the price of rice went up significantly. And that was mostly due not to production deficiencies, because production was still pretty strong last year. It was stronger than the year before, but more with the wholesalers hoarding the production. They're not supposed to do that. The Ministry of Agriculture is not condoning that sort of action, but it has happened that people would buy on futures of the rice and then hold it for the price to go higher. And that caused the Minister of Agriculture to make a remark when he was asked about it in a campaign rally. And he said something to the effect, oh, rice, the price, I have so much rice. I mean, I've got it even under my bed. My supporters are giving me rice all the time. I'm not too attuned to what's going on with the price of rice. He had to resign 2 days later. The prime minister valiantly came to his rescue, said he's a good minister. I really like him. I want him to remain. He went on television saying that, and then the next day he asked for his resignation. But he did make a brilliant move by putting Mr. Koizumi in as his second, as the replacement minister. This prime minister, although he's been in office for less than a year, has been relatively stable. He hasn't lost any ministers of state through scandal or resignation or death. It's been pretty stable. This is the first minister of state for him to lose because of this quip. And it wasn't such a serious quip, but just the economy and the temper of the population, and also the fragmented grasp on political power that he maintains. He just couldn't stand any kind of tweaking there. So he appointed Mr. Koizumi, and although at this point in time, 4 weeks ago, his approval rating was dancing around 30%. That's like a death knell. If you hear the prime minister is 30% or 29%, that means that his term in office is coming to a close. At this particular point in time, we had the snafu with the Minister of Agriculture, and Koizumi was appointed. Now, all of a sudden, Koizumi is in the newspaper every day, on television, talking about the price of rice. The prime minister's approval rating begins to creep up. He's now at around 34%. So that's pretty significant at this particular point in time. Mr. Koizumi has pushed rice now. It is now in convenience stores. You can pick it up at 7-Eleven, at Lawson, at Family Mart. 2 kilograms of rice for 775 yen. That would have been unheard of 3 or 4 weeks ago, and it is the rollout is in Tokyo and Osaka. It's going very aggressive. Mr. Koizumi also pledged on TV this week he will release the entire volume, 910,000 tons of surplus rice from their stockpile. He's going to release that, and the channels that he's going to use are not the normal channels where there's a little bit of stopgap and people are waiting to make a little bit more of a profit. They're going to refine the rice or something like that. And he's going to also activate a tax-free emergency plan for imports of rice. So imports from California, from Thailand, from other countries will be coming into the Japanese market. That means that there's more availability, so the price will be coming down. And the timing couldn't be more pregnant. You've got the Tokyo Metropolitan Government elections today. The LDP holds the largest number of seats there at 42. It wants to increase that. It wants to dominate with its coalition partner and with Tomin First what goes on in Tokyo. And what goes on in Tokyo also signals what's going on in the rest of the nation. And following from that, to win successfully in the upper house election. The unfortunate thing, though, is that even if they win in the upper house election, they still have the 13-person deficit in the lower house. The lower house is really where all the bacon is made. And there's no way that he can fix that. He can't have a double election. He could if he has an extraordinary diet session. So watch out for that. It is not predicted to happen. So it'll be a regular upper house election for 50% of the upper house. And then for the next 3.5 years, the LDP will limp forward in a very kind of fragmented policymaking. The reason why the Tokyo Metropolitan Government election is important is because it is a precursor. Every time the Tokyo Metropolitan Government had an election in close proximity to either the upper house or the lower house, it was a prognosis for what's going to happen. What happens in the Tokyo Metropolitan Government, how the LDP does, how any of the opposition parties do. It is also transferred into the national elections when there's a close proximity of maybe 2 months. And in this proximity, it's 30 days. So what happens in Tokyo tonight is going to be a reflection of what you can expect happening on the national scene as well. There's another 200,000 ton release of deliveries to large distributors projected for next week. This is the second wave of a huge stockpile release. It is triggered to be in early July, and funny enough, in mid-July is the upper house election. So the gasoline tax, it wasn't revised. It was supposed to end on July 3rd, and the LDP just kind of blew through that. They're not going to abolish it. It's going to continue through. So you've got maybe a 20 yen benefit for purchasing gasoline. So everybody benefits from that, or most of the economy benefits from that. And also the release of the stockpiled rice. So building up for these elections, it's a strategic advantage for the LDP in doing that, and also dodging the bullet with the no confidence motion. So the LDP in the upper house election, we can begin telling now what each of the parties is going to predict and project for people to vote for them. It's not going to be a double election. The LDP is campaigning on economic stability, a direct cash handout. They're going to give Nimayen 20,000 yen per adult. It's going to be distributed before the election happens. The opposition party hates that. They say this is just you bribing the population to like you, and part of it is, but part of it is, underpinned by what's going on in the economy. So that's going on. He's also promised, we reported this last week, an increase of the GDP of Japan by 2030 to 1,000 trillion yen per year. It's now at 610 trillion. So to make that kind of a leap is pretty aggressive. It's supposed to excite people. You're going to increase GDP by that much. You're the guy. We want to go with you. He's also promised to increase by 50% take-home pay by people who work in Japan. National average is maybe 4 million yen per worker. That's not very much by international standards. It's actually low. He's said he's going to increase that by 50%. So that would put it towards maybe 6 million yen per year. So that is the campaign that they're going to pledge and put in their manifesto that each party is pumping out, that all of their candidates are going to sing from. Komeito, their policy analysis, their manifesto is going to cut fuel taxes. They want the fuel taxes to be eliminated, and targeted subsidies for people who are living under the poverty level, for single moms, for education, for that sort of thing. The Constitutional Democratic Party wants a consumption tax cut across the board of 5%. A lot of people would like that, but the LDP is saying fiscal responsibility dictates that you don't cut the consumption tax because we're already in deficit spending as it is. The budget that we passed was the largest in history, but more than 50% of it is funded by debt. So that can't continue on. We are the party of adults, is what the Prime Minister is trying to project. The Constitutional Democratic Party says we want political reform and we want the consumption tax at 5%. God damn it. Ishin has once again, you can tell what their motto is, what their core is. They want deregulation. They want to focus on education. You remember one of the concessions they received in getting the budget passed was we want school lunches to be free. We want education up into high school to be free, the government to pay for that. They want decentralization. So one of the problems with Ishin, it is something of a regional party. In Osaka, in Kansai, it is relatively strong. Everything else is centered in Tokyo. All of the major headquarters, all of the seats of government, everything, the Supreme Court, everything is in Tokyo. And the LDP dominates that. And it wants decentralization so it can have a little bit more of a fighting chance to participate in Japanese politics. But, you know, over the last 4 weeks, it's funny. The LDP was kind of being beat up quite a bit. Ishin no Kai was coming up. The expo was going. They were being a little bit aggressive. Mr. Tamaki with the Democratic Party for the People was in the news all the time, very, very flamboyant, making a lot of noise. The Constitutional Democratic Party under the leadership of Mr. Noda was making huge statements, and maybe he's going to get in bed with the LDP. Maybe he's going to have a coalition with the opposition parties. Let's see what happens. And over these last 3 weeks, the fares of all of these opposition parties has plummeted. The fare of the LDP has not grown significantly, but it's improved. And so this prime minister has actually maintained an even keel, even in light of a lot of things that have happened. And strangely enough, although the opposition parties seemed like they had a little bit of wind in their sail, over the last 3 weeks, something's happened, and they haven't done that well of a job in maintaining that momentum. So let's see if I can give you a little bit of a scorecard on the prime minister. 150 days. He became prime minister in October, November, December. They start the 150-day session in January. He is the prime minister. He forms his cabinet, and they move forward. The most important thing for any prime minister at this point in time is to pass the budget by April 1st. The prime minister, because of the election in October, lacks 13 votes to push that through. So he had a lot of difficulty. He had to make concessions to the Constitutional Democratic Party, to Ishin no Kai, and he got the bill passed 2 or 3 days later. It's not a mortal sin for him not to hit the deadline on April 1st, but traditionally, it's April 1st is the deadline. He went a little bit over, and it indicates how delicate a hold on political power he has. But he's done some things right, and you have to give him credit for that, even though he wasn't a flamboyant, a very attractive, a very English suave speaking prime minister. He felt a little bit awkward in going to Brazil and meeting with foreign leaders. But, you know, he was able to pull the rabbit out of the hat and close the session without a no confidence motion. He passed the budget. He passed the largest budget in Japanese political history, 112.6 trillion yen was passed in the 2025 budget. He enhanced spending packages for reconstruction, the Noto Peninsula earthquake, and also for disaster preparation. One of the things that he has been his main campaign pledges, disaster reconstruction and a policy for taking care of these kinds of issues that come up with annoying frequency here in Japan, but also regional revitalization. And he delayed discussions just this last week on abolishing the tax for gasoline. But he's had some challenges too. Let me see where my challenges are for the Prime Minister. You know, he lost this chairman of the Financial Affairs Committee. That's never happened. And it is a bit of a black eye for the LDP to lose that, but it's just the LDP and Komeito, and if the opposition parties, if they can coalesce, they can defeat him. That was the signal that he received. We're not going to do it in a no confidence motion, but we're still going to show you that we can do that. So you need to be careful in treating with us. Let me see. Rice was another issue that just jumped up on him, but he dealt with it rather adroitly by pulling out the agriculture minister and putting in Mr. Koizumi. Many people said that was a stroke of genius. He did a great job in appointing Mr. Koizumi. When it happened, many people just raised their eyes and said, why Mr. Koizumi? But it sure has enhanced Mr. Koizumi's profile, and it has helped the LDP. You might recall that this time last year, when asked, who would you like to be prime minister? Of course, Mr. Ishiba was in the running, but also Sanai Takaichi was also in the running. Koizumi was in the running. Konotaro was in the running. There were about 9 people in the running. In first place was Takaichi. She ranked higher than Konotaro. She ranked higher than Koizumi. She ranked higher than Ishiba. And so there was a runoff, and Mr. Ishiba ran because you have 9 candidates. You see if somebody can get the majority. Nobody got the majority. And then it's a runoff between the first place and the second place holder, and Mr. Ishiba won. Miss Takaichi still wants to become prime minister, but currently, when polled, people rate Mr. Koizumi as the more preferable candidate for prime minister going forward, and Miss Takaichi at a second. So the numbers have actually flipped. The public approval of the prime minister has increased over the last couple of weeks from the low 30s to around 34, 35% now. That's a good kind of momentum. If the stockpile of rice is continued to be released and the prices continue to come down, the gasoline tax is continues to be eliminated, and people enjoy that kind of Nimayan distribution of cash. Yes, it's teed up for the LDP to do significantly well in the upper house election. He did have stalled tariff negotiations. That's not all his fault. He did pick a friend to be his trade negotiator, not a seasoned politician who's had experience in that, but I think Mr. Akazawa has done a reasonable job, actually a commendable job under the circumstances. In the meantime, the prime minister was nicked with a gift certificate scandal. You'll remember that he gave, once the election was finished, he gave to newly seated LDP members, there were about 27 of them, he gave them gift certificates when he brought them into the prime minister's residence for a dinner and a congratulation and thank you very much, and please take this token of my appreciation. It's got some perfume in it, it's got some cookies in it, it's got some gift certificates that you can use in the department store that amounted to about maybe Jumayan, which is a little bit more than $1,000. And so that caused a big controversy. He said he didn't do it illegally. He reported it, but it did cause a bit of a problem. No lasting effect for him, but it was a bit of a stall for him. But I think looking back at the 150 50-day session that the prime minister survived. He survived with grace. The election campaign continues on with the upper house. No double election, no vote of no confidence. So you've got to give him passing marks of at least a C plus or a B minus. It's not A, but he continues. And I think that probably, depending on the outcome of the upper house election, it could change. But I think we're probably getting ready for another prime minister's election once the numbers are all calculated. So with that, I'd like to wrap up, turn it back over to you, Maya, so that we can get into the Q&A session and see what's going on with everybody else in the audience.
Well, thank you, Timothy. Yes, we've got quite a few questions once again, and a couple from me as well. And before we move into the questions that we received this morning, I want to read out something from Byron Johnston. I think he left it last night on the comment thread on LinkedIn. So here we go. He says, Timothy, allow me to preen for having been accurate last week on the Japanese decision to purchase Russian oil. I'm glad that you released a short video on Facebook that responded to my question. And we release short videos on YouTube as well. This is the new strategy of catching more eyeballs. So if you stumble across one of them, one of those short videos there, please let us know that you have seen it, hit like, leave a comment. You can leave a comment there as well, or a question so that we can answer it later during the next podcast. And so let's see, Byron has a question. Does this decision, the decision to resume Russian oil imports, does this decision, albeit within the exemption granted under the ever-changing sanctions on Russia and the cancellation of the 2+2 meeting with the US, signal to the world that Japan is inching closer to becoming a normal nation, as strongly advocated by the late Prime Minister Shinzo Abe? What's your take on this?
As usual, thank you for poking the tiger, Byron. Yes, Japan needs to secure the supply chain. It needs to import oil from even Iran, 7% from Iran. I think a lot of people didn't know that. They thought because of the sanctions, Japan typically was importing around 12% of its oil from Iran in the past. Sanctions were imposed. It limited it somewhat, 7%. They say 7% is not statistically that important, but still 7% is big for somebody like that. With Russia, it's a little bit different. And I think, the foreign ministry has its work cut out with it, having to explain to the United States what its energy mix is and where it's coming from and how it's paying for it. But, it has long-term contracts. That's one of the problems when you have a change in administration from the Democrats to the Republicans to the Democrats. A lot of these alliances, a lot of these trade deals are stymied as a consequence of new policy imperatives. But people have contracts that they've sourced. Corporations spend a lot of money. The one in Sakhalin 1 and Sakhalin 2, that's a 20-year deal. They can't get out of that right away. Russia did offer to purchase their stock, the stocks that they invested. That's not a good deal. You do this for the long term. You don't do this so that Russia will benefit from it and then purchase your stocks back because of U.S. sanctions. And similarly with oil, I think the United States acknowledges Japan's position. It's very interesting, your characterization of Japan being a normal nation. I think Japan is a normal nation. It's just it's in a very delicate position. It doesn't have an army. It doesn't have a standing army. The Constitution does not allow it to have offensive capabilities, and that is provided by the nuclear umbrella, by the United States stationing forces here in Japan, predominantly in Okinawa, but militarily throughout the entire archipelago, up all the way up even towards the northern islands of Hokkaido, all the way down to the southern island of Ishigaki. U.S. forces are dominant everywhere, and the United States and Japan have contracts for facilitation, for service and support, for taking care of maintenance issues, that sort of thing. So it is a delicate balance, and energy is a keystone of that. And if the Japanese have sourced maybe 10% or more, I don't know what the numbers are, Byron. If you have, I'd like to hear that from you. But I think it's just a real politic that's at work there. Maya?
And I think that, yes, according to late Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, he's saying that Japan was going to become, or he wanted Japan to become an, a normal nation like others, was basically becoming able to maintain that army. And I think that, of course, many people may not agree with me, but neutrality has served Japan really well for the
That's
past
right.
8 years, right? And having an army, a standing army, might change that status quo, which is not necessarily something you want to happen. This is from me, and I'm a pacifist at heart. Of course, once again, I say as a woman, as a mother, I think that Japan should do everything possible to remain neutral, and having a standing army doesn't seem to be one of those things for me. But of course, I appreciate the fact that many people would disagree with me on this, and
Mm-hmm.
I respect that as well.
Well, on this particular issue, it's kind of off or on. Are you a
Mhm.
neutral state, or are you militarily engaged? Do you have offensive capabilities? There's no kind of graduations that are. I think there actually are graduations. I think Japan is adroitly practicing graduations. It has dual purpose machinery and military armaments that it is exporting actually. So there's that kind of gray zone. But I think the Japanese population, I agree with you, Maya. There is a great benefit to having neutrality and having a constitution that dictates that you don't have offensive capabilities. But still, Japan is in this very delicate geopolitical situation here in the Pacific, surrounded by, people that are not that very fond with long, long memories and just want to make sure that they can dominate geopolitics in their region too. So it's a very delicate situation.
It is indeed, but I would argue in a separate podcast probably that this situation was not created solely by the players here in this region.
Yep,
So
sure.
okay, yes, I digress here. And well, we have other questions as well. Okay, from since we were talking about oil and oil imports, Manabe-san says that the bill to abolish the temporary gasoline tax rate was scrapped. If the situation in the Middle East worsens, causing oil prices to rise or imports to be disrupted, will responsibility for scrapping the bill be sought, or will there be,
Yeah.
somebody to put the blame on?
Okay, that's a great observation. Um, we watched the yen rate, and the yen has increased as a consequence of what's going on in the Middle East, and the price of oil is a critical component of that. Sometimes you can blame people for making a wrong decision, but in today's volatile environment, you really just don't know. You don't know what's going to happen next. But in late breaking news, I have just learned that the President of the United States has announced that they have taken action. They have bombed the facilities in Iran, and all of the participants from the United States have returned to their home bases with a successful mission concluded. If you're, plugged into other platforms, not now, wait for us to sign off, but apparently that's the latest news that action has already been taken, which means that it could inflate things, it could calm things down. We just don't know. So I appreciate everybody tuning in every week, but it's a very volatile situation. A lot is going to happen over the next week. We're going to continue to watch it. But yeah, I'm not sure if that really responds, Manabe-san, to your question. But I think even if there's a failure of the tariff negotiations, Mr. Akazawa is not going to be blamed for it. Similarly, the chairman of the Finance Affairs Committee is not blamed because he didn't have the conversations ongoing about the gasoline tax. He just cut it. It's not. They could say it's his fault. They blame it for him, but that was a policy decision made within the LDP to move the process forward and to batten things up so that we can close the parliament on Friday. So yeah, people hate to get blamed. They hate to be mentioned in any kind of sentence or in the Bunshun article that actually mentions their name. So that is a torture in and of itself, just to be assigned as participating in something that didn't go right. So you don't really need to blame people. The newspapers and Bunshun will do that for you, but it's Japanese politics. So let's see what happens. But the situation is very different now, today, as a consequence of the news that I just reported to you.
Well, yes, indeed it is. And then, okay, we'll move a little bit later to the rice issue at the moment. But since you mentioned the upper house election, so I want to ask you. So basically, the negotiators, Mr. Akazawa, and of course the government of Japan, they want to be done with the negotiations and have results by July 9th. But the pace at the moment doesn't really give much hope for success, right, by that date, which means that probably the negotiations will continue after that, maybe even after after the upper house election. So my question to you is, basically, we know that the opposition did not submit a no confidence motion because of the ongoing negotiations with the Trump administration as the main reason. They're
Yeah,
probably
maybe.
yes. But once the negotiations are over and once the upper house election is over, do you think that the possibility of Mr. Noda deciding to eventually submit that no confidence vote will increase?
In the first place, I'm not so sure that Mr. Akazawa wants to conclude negotiations by July 9th.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why I say that is underpinned by the decision we're not going to do the 2+2. You know, you guys implemented a tariff structure. We're still trying to get our heads around it. 25%? Why? And 24% on everything else? Well, where did this come from? And why? You're going to implement, you've announced that, and now you're going to say we'll do a 90-day hiatus. And then you want to go from 2%, which we said would do for 5 years, but that doesn't mean it's a guaranteed. And now you're kicking it up to 3. What in the hell? So I think it's the Japanese government has said, you know, who are you dictating to? You know, we are our own nation. We have our own voters to respond to. We have our own parliament or our own government. Why are you dictating? And 90 days? Who says 90 days? Well, why should we even pay attention to a 90-day deadline? So I think that they're going to let the 90-day deadline pass, and it will just continue on until another time. And maybe they're teeing it up for just before the upper house election, and then there'll be a deal, and everybody will say, you did a great job. We got a fair deal. It's not 25%. It's not 15%. Mr. Akazawa, you brought home the bacon. Thank you very much for what you've done for the Japanese people. The LDP rock. Let's go to the election. That could happen, but you know, it's winning significantly in the upper house is not the prize for the LDP. They already maintain a majority there. And even if they lose 10 or 15 seats in the upper house, which is unlikely, they still maintain a majority. That's not the prize. The prize is the lower house, and they have to deal with that for the next 3.5 years unless something else comes up. So yes, you're right to point out, maybe Mr. Noda, once the election is finished, the LDP doesn't do as well as was predicted to do. The Constitutional Democratic Party did well. Ishin did okay. Let's coalesce these forces. Let's kick these bums out. We don't want to deal with Mr. Ishiba anymore. Elect me. I used to be prime minister, so I'll be prime minister again for you guys. He kind of had that opportunity. He let it pass. He had the opportunity just this week. He was actually threatened by Mr. Ichiro Ozawa. You should file a no confidence motion, and if you don't, then we're going to be against you. And he's in the Constitutional Democratic Party. He did this once before with Mr. Noda. He actually insisted on a no confidence motion when Mr. Noda was prime minister a long time ago. Most people don't remember this. And Mr. Ozawa insisted on that. He rattled Mr. Noda. He lost his cool. He lost his confidence. And within 2 months, he was out. And then the opposition parties no longer controlled the parliament. There was no opposition party as president of or as prime minister. Mr. Noda was the last one. So this is kind of a repeat performance. But the funny thing is that those two gentlemen are in the same party now. So Mr. Ozawa coming in and saying, hey, you know, you're the leader of our party, but we really kind of oppose you on a couple of issues. So you ought to get your act together. And if you can't, then why don't you resign and let somebody be the leader of the Constitutional Democratic Party, if you can read between the leaves.
Right. Okay. Thank you for that analysis. And we're going back to the rice issue now. This is a comment from Hiroko-san, and she writes, I was watching the news this morning and learned that President Trump said that U.S. allies in the Pacific region should increase the defense spending up to 5% of its GDP, of their GDP. He is also asking NATO members to do the same, which is understandable given the situation in the Middle East, Ukraine and China, North Korea as well. I wonder how Japan can find resources to achieve that big number.
Okay, so NATO and the allies there and people in Brussels, they were really dragging their feet. It really irked Mr. Trump in his first administration. You'll remember he called them a bunch of sissies and why don't you pay your fair share, and we're carrying you guys, and then the Russian invasion, right? And now people are saying, well, we can't fight the Russians. We're trying to support Ukraine, but we don't have the armaments. Germany said that. France said that. You know, we support you, but here's some money, but we don't have the armaments. Ask the United States. And since there is that conflict going on there, they've decided, yes, he's probably right. We were supposed to spend 1% or 2%. We never quite did it. And now 5%, with Russia breathing down our necks, yes, maybe we should do that. So they're kind of agreeing to that. Tacitly, they're agreeing to it. Here in the Asia Pacific, there is no similar conflict going on with, you know, with deaths, with bombings and stuff like that. But it could happen. And I think probably the United States is saying, we've gained this out, we've looked at it, and it's likely to happen. So you guys need to get your shop in order. You need to come up not 2% or 3%. You need to kick the ball down the road, and you need to really pony up because something is coming down and we're not going to be there to support you 100% of the time. You need to have, you know, advanced preparation. You need to have munitions. You need to be prepared for that. You need to have soldiers. I mean, look at Japan. I mean, they don't have a standing army. They have the self-defense forces. They are in joint exercises with Australia, with Britain, with the United States. But it's hard to build an army when kids going to high school and college, they don't want to join the self-defense forces. There are other opportunities for them. With the declining population, there are better opportunities to earn money and spend the weekends with your family and things like that, rather than put your life on the line and be potentially involved in a confrontation. I mean, the Japanese just are not trained. That muscle memory has disappeared. It's 80 years since then. Yeah, 5% for the people in NATO. I think you would see a heart attack in Kasumigaseki if the United States came in and said it's not 2% anymore, it's not 3%, it's 5%. But yeah, where does this money come from? The Japanese economy is still suffering. They're still suffering from inflation and from income gaps, and also from the trade disparities. So if the Trump tariffs are implemented in the way that they are conveyed right now, 25% for automobiles and automobile parts, 24% across the board for everything else, the Japanese economy is going to continue to falter because you're paying a premium for exporting and also for importing products. So it's an untenable situation when you've got it outgoing and incoming. They just don't match. The budget for the 2025 year was 50% paid for by the issuance of government bonds. You know, even the economy isn't producing enough to pay for that budget. So I think we all know that Japan is one of the outliers. I mean, more than 250% of their economy is dominated by debt. they don't have a good, strong plan to address that. It's been going on for more than 25 years, so a lot remains to be seen.
Indeed, a lot remains to be seen. And well, Timothy, it looks like we don't have other questions at this point of time, which also means that you can go back to sailing and enjoying the wind and the waves and everything there. So
You can
thank you.
you can tell the boat is rocking, right?
Yes, yes, and I can see that, yeah, behind you there is a tarp or something in the distance, which is really moved. Oh no, that's your. Oh, that's sorry. I thought it was in the distance. It's just above you.
It's a sunshade above the cock
Okay,
the cockpit, the
right,
steering. Yeah.
right. So the sunshade, yes, it's actually moved by the wind quite strongly. So, yes. Okay, thank you very much indeed. And once again to you who stayed with us this morning with Japanese Politics One-on-One. Thank you very much. This was Timothy Langley, the CEO of the longest standing government relations and public policy firm in Tokyo, and me as a host, Maya Matsuoka. We'll be here once again next Sunday morning at 8:20, so please join us again at that time if your schedule allows. Tell your friends as well, because some of them may find this information helpful, and also share this with your colleagues and maybe family. Thanks a lot again. That's all for today. Enjoy the weekend, and yes, Timothy.
You're a terrific audience. We are so encouraged and just what you do and what you say to us and the comments you share are really encouraging. So thank you very much for sticking with us, even though the Wi-Fi connectivity gives us a problem from time to time. But we're here every Sunday just for you. Thanks for contributing. Thanks, Maya.
Thank you, Timothy.